Okay, so today we're going to start Samach Daled, Amud Beis, 64b. And it's 4 lines from the bottom. It's a brand new Mishnah. I think Hashem to be able to learn every day. In the course of our learning, we should have the Beis Hamikdash immediately. Okay. So this Mishnah really doesn't have anything to do with Masechtas Nazir. Apparently, it was brought here just because there's a phrase in the Mishnah which is the same as the phrase in the Mishnah before. So we put all the Mishnayos that have this phrase, and then we put it together. The phrase before was Shiraglayim Ladavar. We said that if someone was Tameh, then we'll consider him continuing to be Tameh if there was a doubt that arose. Shiraglayim Ladavar, because there was a basis to assume that he was Tameh anyway. But here we're going to have again Shiraglayim Ladavar, and then in the following Mishnah, we're going to have another Shiraglayim Ladavar. So that's a connection between these Mishnayos. Okay, so let's take this. Hamaitzimes betchila. Take out the word betchila. Mushkav kedarke. Someone finds a corpse. What we're going to be learning about now is a Jewish cemetery, the rules of a Jewish cemetery. So if someone finds a corpse that's laying, I guess in the ground, laying there, just normally spread out. So Naitle Vest Visase, he's allowed to move the corpse, but when he removes the corpse, he takes it together with the dirt that's surrounding the corpse, because we assume that there's not surrounding, that's underneath the corpse. We assume that some of the blood and fluids went into that, which would be considered part of the corpse. Now, why are you allowed to move the corpse? Normally, a corpse acquires the area that it's buried. That's its location. The answer is because if it was just one corpse, it was probably buried with the intent that it was going to be moved afterwards anyway. For whatever reason, they just buried it here, they'll move it later. So if it's just one corpse there, it's not a cemetery. So it was probably just buried there for temporary purposes. Yeah. And that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to bury. They buried it right away. You're not supposed to leave it out. They're going to move it somewhere. So they buried it temporarily. Shnayim, if you find 2 corpses, Naitlan Vestusasan, also you're allowed to move it. It's still not a cemetery. It's still considered that there's an assumption here that it was buried, just a temporary burial. It's going to be moved. So Shleisha, now everything switches. Find 3 corpses there. Okay, now there's some complications here on how to reconcile this Mishnah with the Gemara and Baba Basra, but basically, ignoring all the calculations, there's if it's within a certain amount of space, then it's assumed that these were all buried together as a cemetery, in between 4 and 8 amas. This is considered a neighborhood of graves, which means a cemetery. Now, once something's buried in a cemetery, then you can't move it. Doing okay? Everything's good? Okay. Yeah, with 3 bodies would be a cemetery already. I'm not sure how they create a cemetery. How does the first one start? I'm not sure. Okay. And then once you have a cemetery, then you have to go search around for more graves to see. See, we're not talking about the people we're not talking about the guy that found the grave starting the cemetery. We have a question over here. Is this an ancient cemetery that he discovered? And so he finds 3 graves. We say, yes, he's just come across an ancient cemetery. And then he has to search 20 amas in the different directions. Unclear about that, but it says, and further on, 20 amas. Let's say he finds in 20 amas away another grave. So they have to search another 20 amas. Yeah, let's assume that what it means is that you continue in that direction another 20 amos, or maybe it's possible that it means in the other direction as well. Shiraglayim ladavar, and that was the phrase that we were looking for, because there's a basis for this. Because if he found them just him, in other words, that one that was 20 amos away, then you would have removed him. But now that you see that you have three nearby, so it means that this is possibly part of the cemetery, then he has to stay there. Okay, so that's the Mishnah. Hanoch Teller, the writer, wrote this story. He wrote this story about this boy that was coming home from yeshiva in Gateshead, and he stopped in the bus stop or something in New York. He got out, he was waiting, and he sees some sort of development. They're digging up something. He noticed bones in there, and he alerted someone. Anyway, it turns out that they were actually digging up an ancient cemetery of the sages of York. There was a Jewish community there before the Crusades. Anyway, they went in, they collected the bones, and they removed the cemetery to somewhere else. The government was just making some project there, Okay. Amar Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says, this Gemara is unbelievable. I don't know if there's another Gemara like this. Rav Yehuda says that he starts to quote words of the Mishnah as if the Mishnah is a pasuk, and he starts to elaborate on each word. It says, when the Mishnah said matzah, that's funny, the Mishnah didn't even say matzah. It said hamaitzi, someone that found. But matzah, prat lamatzah, someone that found, that's excluding if we had known that this corpse was there before. When do we say that you're allowed to move it? Actually, there's different ways of learning this. One way of learning this is, when do we say that you're allowed to move it? That's because you just came across it, you stumbled across this. But if you knew that this was buried there, then you wouldn't be allowed to move it. That's one pshat. Other pshat is that what it's really saying is that once you find 3 corpses, then you're not allowed to move it. That's only if you didn't know that the 3 corpses were there originally. But if one of those 3 corpses was known originally, then it's not counted as 3, counted just as 2, and then you're allowed to move it because one of them didn't go into that count. Again, we're discovering an ancient cemetery here. So if you knew that one of them was there, then that doesn't go into the count of the other. That we're looking for 3. If there's 3 bodies, then you're not allowed to move it. There's 2 interpretations over here of what the Rav Yehuda means. Matzah, prat lamatzah. Then it says mace. That was dead. Okay. The Rav Yehuda says that this is excluding prat laharag. It's excluding someone that was killed. See someone, the body was cut up, then then the halacha changes. Now, what changes exactly? Maybe it means that if it's harug, then you're not allowed to then you're not allowed to move him. Maybe it means when it's harug, you don't have to take the ground together with him. Maybe harug means that he's not part of the cemetery. Let me see what the Rush says.
Like if the bodies were laid there like a cemetery, if it wasn't known as one, they're considered like a cemetery.
Right. Here he's saying that the Rush learns that if he was harag, if he was murdered, how do you tell that? You see, his body was cut. So then that does not become a cemetery. He was buried there because that's where he was killed. Not because, in other words, he won't combine to another 2 people there to create a cemetery. That there'll be 3 people buried. Mushkov, the body has to be laying out. Prat liyoshev, that's excluding if the body was buried sitting up. We'll see in a minute why. kedarkai, has to be laid out in its way. That means spread out. Prat l'shirosha munach bin yerchaisav. This would be excluding even if it's laying, but that the head is bent between the knees. It's like buried, like folded in half. That would also not count as a cemetery. Gemara asks, well, for 1 second before we get to the question. Tani Ula Bar Chanina. Ula Bar Chanina taught Meisha Chasrein Litvus of Leishunas Kvaris. If there's a corpse that's missing part of the body, so then we say that does not combine to the cemetery, and we also say that it doesn't acquire the ground, the earth that's surrounding it. Gemara asks, "V'cholhani my time aloi." What's the reason for all of these that we say that they don't become a cemetery if they're buried interesting, different ways? Or Amrina, and we say since that's not the regular way of burying, so we say that it's not considered that we don't know who this person is. It's an ancient cemetery, but because it wasn't buried in the Jewish way, so we say that it probably wasn't a Jew anyway. So then it's not a problem. It doesn't become a cemetery. He's saying the intent of why the person was buried, if it was buried temporary or if it was buried there permanently.
Yeah, because if you found somebody dead, it's not considered like they were buried.
Right. Well, it won't combine to the other two that seem to be buried and then say, oh, look, we have 3 already. Okay. Matzah Shnayim, is this the continuation of a brisa? I think so. Is this a continue? It was taught in a brisa. It's interesting because I don't have usually when the Gemara quotes a brisa, it has an introductory word but this may be just a continuation of Rabbi Yehuda. This may be still Rabbi Yehuda talking. Oh, so it's a continuation of Tani Ula Bar Chanina. It's a continuation of that brisa. It says like this: Matzah Shnayim, if two corpses were found. They didn't bury them all the heads facing the same direction, the way they do in a Jewish cemetery. They buried, like opposite crisscross. The one head was this way and one head was this way. Yeah, would that save space? I guess maybe because the shoulders would take up space. Right. Right, like the sardines. How do they pack those sardines in? Isn't that incredible? Is that done by machine? It has to be. Right. And they pack it exactly like, So whenever I see something like this, I just think of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory's grandparents. They lived in the house, but they only had one bed. So they said Josephine, Joseph, is the names. Okay. So they Now you can imagine why, because it's probably not a Jewish cemetery. We're finding these corpses, but they're not buried in the Jewish manner. So Matzah Shleisha, if you find 3 corpses, one of them was already known, and 2 of them, it's the first time you see these bodies. Or maybe there were 2 that were known and 2 that were originally found. They were just discovered. That also doesn't combine to become a cemetery. It has to be 3 that were unknown or 3 that were known. And it's a cemetery if they're known. And they have to be Jews. But if they're buried in a way that makes us assume that they're not Jewish, it's not going to be considered a Jewish cemetery. Maisa for Rabbi Yesheva. Story with Rabbi Yesheva. think, do we have two Rabbi Yeshivas? We have a Rabbi Yeshiva Baseifer. He was one of the 10 martyrs, I think. What did they say over there?
This was probably him, because it says that he was a third generation Tana, and his scribe, who was a disciple of Rabbi Yeshua, and the contemporary of Rabbi Akiva.
Does it say that he was one of the 10 martyrs? Oh, he's okay.
Yeah. That's contemporary with Rabbi Akiva.
So there was a story with Rabbi Yeshiva. Shabbat kamatza shnayim yiduim v'echad tchila. He checked an area. He found that there were two corpses that were known, and one of them was another corpse there was just discovered right now. He wanted to say, guys, this is a cemetery. We cannot move the corpses from here. They have to stay. Once, if it's buried in a cemetery, then it's complicated to move it's not so simple. Buried in a cemetery means that that's where it's buried, and you're not supposed to move it. But after he was killed. He wanted to make it a cemetery. Rabbi Akiva says to him, all of your efforts are in vain. He takes out a few words here. Ella legimal. We only said that it's a cemetery if it's three, either according to our text of the Gemara, three that are known or three originally. According to the Gra, we only said that it becomes a cemetery if it's three original bodies that were just discovered. Okay. It says Neutlan Vest Fusasan. When the corpse is moved, because you only found one, then you take it together with the dirt that's surrounding that's underneath the corpse. What is this? What is this similar to? What is this meaning of tfusa? I'm Rav Yudah Makrav and a Sasani Mitzrayim. You should carry me out of Egypt, which means I think this looks like there's a word missing. Tol imi, take together with me. Let me see what it says on the side. Oh, Mitzrayim tol imi. That's what it looks like. Take with me Mitzrayim as well. It means from Egypt, take the dirt to bring it with me. Who said in Son of Mitzrayim? Is that Yaakov or Yosef? That's Yosef saying. So Yosef was first buried in Egypt, right? Maybe in the Nile. And then he was taken out. When he was taken out, he wants the dirt to be brought together with him. Dirt that's around the Okay, Kamashir Tfusa, how much is taken together with how much dirt? Pirish Rebbe Lozer, possibly Bart Tzaddik, or not, maybe it's just Rebbe Lozer. Yeah, I have it in brackets. The Gro removes it, so I don't know what it is. Pirish Rebbe Lozer. Rebbe Lozer explains that noitel afer tichuach, you take the soft dirt that's around it, and then in the hard, in like the bedrock, the hard earth that's underneath it, it's called basula. Basula means literally means virgin, but it means that an area that hasn't been plowed and it hasn't been dug up. You take from that also three fingers width, because we're assuming that the blood drained into that, the disintegration drained into that, so it's considered part of the body. We take 3 fingers width together with the burial. Gemara has a question, Meisvei. We have a contradiction. It says V'kamashir tfusa. How much is a tfusa? How much is this area that you have to dig up and take together with the body? Here's Rabbi Elazar bar Tzaddik. Rabbi Elazar bar Tzaddik says, here it's clearly Rabbi Elazar bar Tzaddik, right? Says that noitel es akismin v'esaksases v'zeriches avadoyin aminiachas asveikas v'shar mitzaref l'rev binyani shel meis l'rev atzam shmol tavid. You get this other definition of how much it's supposed to take. What do you take? It says, well, you take the wood chips that are found together with it, because we think that maybe the coffin like decomposed and there's wood chips that are all around it. You also take the clumps of dirt that may be clumped together because of the body fluids that cause the dirt to clump. And you don't have to take the stones. That's clearly not absorbed. The stones are not absorbed from the corpse. And things that are a doubt, you can leave them on the side. In other words, you shouldn't leave them there to give off tumah, but you have to put them somewhere else. And the rest that's there could combine to the full full structure of the body of the corpse, or at least to a roivat samis, or maybe to a measurement of bones, which also gives off a tumah. And then it says also to that spoonful of dust that if a body disintegrates, that dust also gives off tumah. It's a very big issue with this Gemara because we said that was only if it's buried in a marble coffin. Once you have anything else mixed in, then that dirt doesn't give off tumah. And here we're saying that it does. That's a complication the commentators have to reconcile. Whatever the case is, we're saying that with not just 3 fingers of dirt that you take with, you have to take this other stuff as well. That when we said before that you take just that dirt, we were following a different Tana. The Tanya was started in the Rice with Kamashir Tfusa. How much is the Tfusa that you take with? Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Ben Azai. Yochanan says, "Name Ben Azai." It's exactly what we mentioned before. So don't ask me that. How could you say this? Because you have a brisa that says differently. So what? I have a brisa that says like what I said. There's an argument, but that's fine. Argument is not a question. An argument is normal. If there's an argument, the question would be if I have no opinion that supports me. So here we're saying that we have an opinion, another brisa that supports it. Now I get why the Gra took out Rabbi Lazar bar Tzadok, because then this would not resolve the issue. Because how could Rabbi Lazar bar Tzadok say both? If it's Rabbi Lazar, in the next brisa is Rabbi Lazar bar Tzadok, we'll say, okay, they're arguing. But if it's the same person, then that's a contradiction. That's an automatic contradiction. Taisus mentions that how does Rabbi Yochanan end up in a brisa? Rabbi Yochanan is an Amayra. Rabbi Yochanan's on the second page of the chart, and the brisa is the first page. Is the Tanaim. Taisus says that it's not Rabbi Yochanan the Amayra, it's Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. It's a much earlier sage. He adds a last name. It dates him back to the days of the Mishnah. Okay. Yeah, you okay with that? You don't have the book.
I don't like sure.
You have to examine 20 amas. If you find that it's 3 graves, it's considered a cemetery. Amar Rava says, let's say the person was checking, and Upina, Badak Upina, when he was checking, it turned out that he took away one of the graves. Or both 2 of the graves. He's looking for the 3rd one. Badak Upina, Badak Vashka. You see, when he found one, he said, "Oh, there must be only one." So he moved the body. Then found another one. So he moved the body. 2 is not a cemetery, right? But then he found the 3rd one. So he found the 3rd one. Says now it's already a cemetery. What do I do with those other 2 bodies that I just moved? I wasn't supposed to move them. If it's a cemetery, they have to stay there. No, if you find one, you're allowed to take it. If you find 2, you're allowed to take it. If you find 3, then then you have to check the 20 cubits. But one body found in someone's backyard, something doesn't mean that, oh my gosh, I built my house on a cemetery. It's just, I don't know how this happened, but okay, there's one body. So he moves it to a cemetery or whatever. He reburies it somewhere else. Then he finds that this is not so simple. So what happens now? So, loy hai mefana legabi hanach. Badak vashkach. Loy hai mefana legabi hanach trey. Loy hani trey legabi hai chad. Now, because I found the 3rd one, so what I have to do now is I don't move the ones that I don't replace the ones that I had moved away, and I don't move this one to go to the one to where I replaced the other ones. or I reburied others. I don't move it. It is what it is. We started to move it, but it is what it is. We just leave it as right now. Ikad Amri, some have a text here where it says that, and it's considered a cemetery, which means that you have to check the 20 cubits in the different directions to check. Ikad Amri, that those that have this text, the little version, Amar Rava, that Rava said, Kivan Shnasar Rishus Lifnei Smefanen line. Once the permission was granted to move the graves, then you're allowed to move them, which means not only the first one was moved with permission, the second one was moved with permission, but the third one, since the first two were moved, you're allowed to move that as well. It's only one grave. The Gemara asks, why don't we consider it a cemetery? Amrish Lakish, Ila Matzo Vetiro Eretz Yisrael, found an excuse to purify the land of Israel. We want the land of Israel to be pure. So once it's already separated, it's the cemetery was taken apart. So we continue, and it's not considered a cemetery anymore. So that would be different than the first version of Rava. What do you have in halacha? Do they say the halacha there?
Allah mentions you if one examined and did not find.
So they don't have the halacha. Okay. But
It says it, no?
what does it say?
One found 3 corpses, examined 20 cubits around the body without finding additional corpses. Those 20 cubits are pure,
Right.
despite the fact that the corpses he discovered formed the graveyard.
Right. Right. What I want to know is if someone had already removed the corpse number 1 and removed corpse number 2, corpse number 3 is still there. Is that considered a cemetery, or is that considered that it's already been separated?
I would think not, because if not, we wouldn't be able to move it. And they're saying that we could.
Yeah. No. There's 2 texts. There's 2 versions to the Gemara. I wanted to know which one was the one that was accepted. Ikad Amri.
Only registered the one that you could move it.
Okay.
You don't know the answer.
I don't know the answer. Badak Mesrim Ama V'lei Matzah Mai. If he checks 20 amas and he doesn't find anything, what's the din? Amar Menashe Bar Yirmiyah Amar Rav. Menashe Bar Yirmiyah says name Rav Shchunas Kvaris Mai Taima. And the first part is the first part. The 3 that are found is considered a cemetery, but he doesn't need any more. That's it. We say my time. What's the reason for this? That we say we want Eretz Yisrael to be pure, so we say that that's as far as he needs to go, and the cemetery was just those original 3 and not more. After he checked the 20.
So my house is okay when I built on the property.
Did you find 3 corpses on there?
Well,
Oh, the other guy that found 3 corpses.
now you just move one at a time. You need permission after you move one, right? You need permission to move one.
No. If you find 1, you don't need permission. You can move it. Find 2, you also don't need permission to move it. Finding 3 becomes a problem.
This happens all the time. When they dig around, especially in Miami, they find a corpse. The builder says, "Let's move it," because if it's a graveyard, it's got to become public property again. They find Indian graves.
Oh,
but I got a big building waiting.
so I move 1 at a time.
Yeah, just move it and then.
Yeah. So we're saying that if according to one version of this, if 1 was moved at a time, then it would be fine. But according to the other version, once you realize that there's three there, then the 3rd one cannot be moved, and you don't move the other ones back because they were already relocated.
You don't move them back.
You just declare the cemetery for what's there, and then you have to check the 20 amas all around. It's only if they're Jews, yeah.
Oh.
Well, the American Indians may be the 10 lost tribes.
Yeah. I know They didn't care what the cemetery. They just built.
Oh, really? Oh, well. Okay.
Along the Miami River, they keep finding things as they excavate to build the building. They find it, and some of them they put a fence around it and say, okay, you found an ancient Indian graveyard. The big one, at the mouth of the river, they found the whole area. It wasn't graveyards, it was like a city.
Uh-huh.
But we have a big building ready to be built on top. So I think a big controversy, and last time I went to see it, they covered it with grass. They built a huge hotel next to it.
Uh-huh.
Put up a sign.
Uh-huh.
They didn't say Jews were not buried.
Yeah. Okay. Kol safek negoim betchila tar actually niskak l'tam mish niskak l'tam asveki tami. Yeah, what happens here is if there's a doubt if someone is tummy. Now, an example, let's say we're talking about saras. Example for this would be, when saras spreads, it gives off, it makes the person tummy. Someone has a blotch on his skin of the color of saras, one of those 4 shades of color, a type of white, or reddish or something, reddish white or something. A type of white blotch on his skin. So the Kayan quarantines him, and he comes back 7 days later and he sees, did it spread or did it grow the hairs in it? Anyway, let's say there were 2 of them. And one of them had a small blotch, the other one had a larger blotch. When he comes back, both of them have the same size blotch, which means one is tummy and one is tar. He doesn't remember which one was which. So it's a doubt. That's a doubt which one became tummy. One of them stayed the same. Stays the same. He's not tummy. They quarantine him 1 more week and then they let him go. But he's not tummy. Then let's say the opposite. Let's say it decreased in size. And the question is, which one was the one that decreased? Let's say one was larger and one was smaller, and now they're both the same size. I don't know which one was the larger one to say that which one. Then now they're both equal. One of them didn't decrease and one of them did. So one is coming out of the tumah and one is going into the tumah. So the Mishnah says like this: whenever you have a doubt like that, if it's betchila, it's tar achlei niskak l'tumah. If it's originally, if we didn't say that he's tamei, then we say that he's tar. Once he's tamei already, then speke tamei, then we consider him tamei from then on. We consider him tamei because we don't take him out of the tumah because of a doubt, but we don't bring him into the tumah because of a doubt. Where did we know this from? I'm Rav Yehuda Rav. Rav Yehuda says the name of Rav. That's a famous student of Rav Yehuda, one that we had before today. Says, Amakra, you have a pasuk. It says, Latare elatame, to purify him or to make him impure. What is the beginning of the verse? Does it have that in English?
To pronounce it pure, or to pronounce it impure.
Okay. Yeah, to pronounce him. But the Kayan pronounces him pure or impure. Now, the choice of words order here, the choice of word order was that to pronounce him pure came before the impure. So So since the pronouncing him pure came first, so we say that we don't make him tamei. We say that he should be tar. The Gemara says, when you have a doubt, even if he was tamei already, and coming out of the tumah, we should say that he's tar. If that's preference is given to making him tar, then that's how it should be. Rather, the statement of Rav Yehuda Marav was said on a different question. You have the right answer, but you got the question wrong.
Got the right answer with the question.
What they joked about this yeshiva bacher. It says, I just figured out the greatest answer. I just have to find what the question was. Okay, So Ela Kietma de Rav Yehuda Marav Ahoyetma was stated on this statement, on a different statement. In Baheres Kadma L'Seil and Tamik. If the spot of discoloration, white spot, came before the white hair, then it's tummy. In other words, the order goes like this: they find a spot on him, and then the hairs turn white, and then so he's tummy. But however, then it's tar. But if they had white hairs, and then afterwards, around the white hairs, comes the white spot, so then he's tar. That's not the order of becoming tummy. Suffix. But if it's a doubt, which one came first? They just see right now that there's a spot with white hairs in it, so we say that that's tummy. Rabbi Yeshua Emer Keya. Yeshua says Keya. How do they translate Keya? Keya means like dim, faint. Faint means it's faint. Now, what does faint mean? My Keya, what does that mean? I'm Rav Yehuda Keya V'tar. That means that no, actually he's tar if it's a doubt. The Gemara says, how do you know that? Dilma Keya V'tame. Maybe that faint means, or dim means that it's tummy. I'm Rav Yehuda Marav. No, Rav Yehuda Marav says that we have a verse. Amakra l'tare l'tame. Says that the Kohen pronounces them tar or tame. That since the preference, the first word was pronounce him tar. So if there's a doubt, we're just going to pronounce him tar, not tame. Okay, let's leave the next Mishnah for tomorrow. All right, let's leave that.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a great day.
Good day. Thank you. Kol tov. Bye.
Okay. Thanks.